Obviously, getting to carbon net zero by 2050 is a government mandated priority, but then also from a sustainability perspective, we need to understand how we as an Air Force can conduct our operations in a much more sustainable way in the future. One of the challenges that we have with that is the fact that we obviously fly a lot of aircraft. We've got an awful lot of real estate. What we've tried to do with Project Vital here is to create a living laboratory for the Ministry of Defence and for the Air Force to look at new technologies and new ways of tackling both carbon net zero and sustainability challenges in the future.
At the moment, the experiments that we've got carbon accounting, geothermal energy. We're also looking at using sustainable transport as well. So how can we use our vehicles in a sustainable manner? And we're also looking at how we heat our buildings and our infrastructure, so using integrated solar energy, and also how can we capture the carbon using different methods, whether that's living walls and moss walls.
We're really keen to make sure that carbon capture is part of the normal life in future, because we have to do something to take carbon out of the atmosphere, as well as to prevent more carbon going back into the atmosphere to help get rid of the effects of climate change. So we've been focusing on soils in this respect, and we've been looking at the way in which soils pull carbon out of the atmosphere. They're doing it all the time. We've got the plants through photosynthesis, which do it for nothing. They take carbon out of the atmosphere and they put it into the soil through their roots. So what we've been doing through our research at Newcastle is to look at how that carbon can be fixed in the soil, and we've been doing that on a number of sites in Newcastle city centre itself. We're delighted to be able to do this here in RAF Leeming, where we can have a look at how a managed space that's grassland effectively, from our point of view, can pull carbon out of the atmosphere.
It's well publicised that there's a need to reduce vehicle emissions across the station and the wider MOD. How are Leeming MT moving towards this?
Okay, so as you suggested there is that need to reduce. So I engaged with Babcock's, our lease provider, just to ascertain if there were any surplus assets out there, electric vehicles that we could take on fleet. Fortunately, there were two, so there was the Nissan Leaf and the EV200, the car-derived van. We managed to transfer them across to Leeming, which was a fantastic start. What I now needed to do was find a way of charging these assets. So what I did was I used the £5,600 that we received back as part of our gain share following a fleet optimisation review, and then what we had installed was around about 10 13 amp 3-pin weatherproof charging sockets around the station that are just 220 volt, but that allows us to slow charge these assets. Then I started looking at how we could find and employ some faster charging pods. From that, what we got was 4 of these rapid charging points. Each of them have 2 charging points. That gives us 8 rapid charging points in total, and these are 22 kilowatt, so they give us that rapid charging ability. So we should already be replacing all our diesel equivalents with ULEVs, that's ultra low emission vehicles, by 2030. In the next few weeks we are receiving 6 E208, Peugeot E208s, and then a couple of weeks after that we'll be receiving another 4 Peugeot partner electric vans, and this is just the first step in replacing all of our diesel vehicles where there's an electric equivalent.
To that end, we've got some smaller projects where we're using, as I say, electric vehicles across the station. We're converting some of our larger ones to hydrogen. Combine that with some of the work that's being done in the wider Air Force on synthetic fuels for our aircraft, for example. Combine that with carbon offsetting by using some carbon capture on the far side of the airfield, and the sum net effect is that we reduce our overall carbon footprint, and we get to a point where that bar chart of my carbon footprint against either my carbon offset or reduction balances out, and we end up with a carbon net zero station.